Right now, in your garden, a rabbit is sitting completely still. And its ears are moving, not its head, not its body, just the ears, rotating independently, like two small satellite dishes, each tracking a different sound from a different direction. One ear toward the hedge, the other toward the road. The rabbit is processing both soundscapes at once, separately, continuously, for as long as it sits there. Most people glance at a rabbit on the lawn and see a creature that is simply alert, simply nervous. That is not what's happening. The ears can rotate up to 270 degrees, move independently of one another, and detect sounds at frequencies and distances far beyond human hearing. Every single night, your garden is full of sound you cannot hear. And the rabbit sitting quietly at the edge of your lawn is listening to all of it. Welcome to Garden Wildlife Mind. Subscribe if you're new, because tonight, we're going through exactly what those ears are picking up, how rabbits process two completely different soundscapes at once, and the specific sounds that decide whether your garden is safe enough for a rabbit to stay in. Stay until Chapter 5, because it explains something about the frozen rabbit on your lawn that will completely change how you read it. To understand what a rabbit is listening for, you first have to understand how its ears actually work. And the honest answer is that they function less like a single hearing system and more like two independently operating receivers. Each rabbit ear is controlled by more than 20 muscles, allowing it to rotate, tilt, and pivot largely independent of the other. While most mammals can angle their ears somewhat, rabbits take this to an extreme. One ear can lock onto a sound to the left, while the other rotates to scan behind, and the rabbit's brain processes both streams at the same time, without either one interrupting the other. This means a rabbit sitting in your garden at night is not listening to the garden the way you might listen to a room. It is running two parallel audio feeds, one toward the fence line, one toward the house, and comparing them constantly. The shape of the ear matters too. The large, cupped, funnel-like structure works exactly like a satellite dish, collecting sound waves across a wide area and channeling them down into the ear canal. Researchers studying lagomorph hearing have found this design lets rabbits detect sounds at volumes most predators assume are too quiet to register, including frequencies humans don't pick up at all. Low-frequency sounds travel further and pass through solid objects more easily, which means a rabbit can often hear something approaching from behind a hedge or fence before it's anywhere near visible. High-frequency sounds, the kind made by small movements and rustling, are picked up with a precision most mammals simply don't have. So when you see a rabbit sitting still with its ears swiveling slightly, understand what's actually happening. It is running a continuous two-channel scan of your garden's entire soundscape, near and far, front and back, all at once. And it has been doing this every single night since long before you noticed. Not all sound is equal to a rabbit. Out of everything moving through the night air. Wind, traffic, distant voices, music from a window. There is one category of sound the rabbit's brain treats as urgent above all others. And it isn't what you'd expect. The single most important sound to a rabbit is footfall, the specific rhythm and weight pattern of something walking. Rabbits are exceptionally good at distinguishing between footstep patterns, and research into prey species hearing has shown these animals can often identify not just that something is approaching, but roughly what kind of animal, based purely on cadence and weight. A cat's light, irregular pad. A fox's steady, deliberate trot. A human's heavier, more rhythmic stride. A dog's faster, often noisier gait. Each of these has a distinct acoustic signature, and a rabbit that has spent any time in your garden has effectively built a sound library of every regular visitor to that space, including you. This is why a rabbit can sometimes seem completely unbothered by one person walking through the garden but bolt instantly when a different person approaches. It isn't your scent reaching it first, it's your walk. Your particular footstep pattern has either been cataloged as familiar and low risk, or it hasn't. What's remarkable is how quickly this catalog updates. A change in your gait, A new pair of shoes with a different sound on gravel, even walking faster than usual because you're in a hurry, can register as something slightly unfamiliar. Most of the time it won't be enough to trigger alarm, but it's logged. Every footstep you take in your garden is, in a small way, a data point being added to a rabbit's running assessment of you. The second category of priority sound is much quieter, and it doesn't come from outside the garden at all. It comes from another rabbit. Rabbits communicate danger primarily through a sharp foot thump against the ground, a vibration that travels through soil and is felt as much as heard. There's also a softer vocal element, a brief, high-pitched sound used at close range between rabbits, and a rabbit's ears are tuned to catch this even from a considerable distance, even over background noise. When one rabbit thumps a warning at the far end of a garden, every rabbit within range, including ones that heard nothing else and saw nothing, will freeze within a fraction of a second. The sound itself is the alarm, no visual confirmation needed. The single thump can travel surprisingly far. The vibration moves through the ground itself, which means a rabbit doesn't even need clear air between itself and the warning source. A thump on one side of a hedge, a fence, or a raised bed can still register on the other side because the signal isn't purely airborne. What makes this more interesting is that not every rabbit thumps for the same reason, and other rabbits seem to calibrate their response based on which individual is doing the thumping. A rabbit known to be more reactive, one that thumps frequently at minor disturbances, may be partially discounted over time, the same way a car alarm that goes off constantly eventually gets ignored by an entire street. A rabbit that rarely thumps but does so now tends to produce a much stronger and more immediate reaction from everyone nearby. So every night, the rabbits in your garden are doing two things at once, cataloging the footstep signatures of everything that moves through their space and staying tuned for a single sharp thump that could come from anywhere, weighted by exactly which rabbit is doing the thumping. Here is something most people never consider. A significant part of what a rabbit hears every night exists in a frequency range that human ears cannot access at all. Human hearing typically tops out somewhere around 20,000 hertz. Rabbits can hear well beyond that, into ranges used by some of their most significant predators and prey relationship partners. A number of small mammals communicate, and a number of predators move in ways that produce sound primarily in these higher ranges. What this means practically is that your garden, at night, contains an entire layer of acoustic activity completely invisible to you. Small rodents communicating to each other in the undergrowth, the very particular high-frequency component of certain cat vocalizations. Even insect activity, which produces sound in ranges far above typical human hearing, contributes to this layer. To a rabbit, none of this is background noise, it's information. A change in the pattern of high-frequency rustling near the base of a hedge might indicate the presence of a small predator that hasn't been seen yet. A particular ultrasonic component in a sound might be the difference between a bird moved in the bush and something is hunting near the bush. Distinctions. A rabbit's hearing is built to catch and a human's simply isn't. There's also the low end of the spectrum. Very low-frequency sounds. The kind produced by larger animals, by certain machinery, even by changes in air pressure before weather shifts, travel extremely well and can be detected from much greater distances than higher-pitched sounds. Some researchers studying animal behavior around weather changes have noted that certain prey species appear to respond to these low-frequency pressure changes before any visible sign of a storm, adjusting their feeding and shelter behavior hours in advance. So when a rabbit in your garden suddenly moves toward cover on a calm, clear evening for no reason you can identify, it's worth considering that the reason might already be audible, just not to you. The garden you experience and the garden a rabbit experiences are, acoustically, almost two different places. When a rabbit on your lawn suddenly goes completely still, body flattened slightly, ears locked in position, not moving a muscle, most people read this as fear. A rabbit caught out in the open, paralyzed. That is only part of the story, and the part that's missing is the part that matters most. That stillness is not paralysis. It is active processing. By stopping all of its own movement, the rabbit eliminates the noise of its own body, its own footsteps on grass, the rustle of its own fur, and in doing so, dramatically increases the clarity of everything else it can hear. This is the equivalent of you stopping mid-sentence in a noisy room because you think you heard your name. The freeze isn't the absence of action, it's the most acute listening posture the rabbit has. During that freeze, something specific happens with the ears. Rather than scanning broadly, both ears begin narrowing their focus toward the same general area, performing what is essentially acoustic triangulation. By comparing the minute differences in when a sound arrives at each ear, differences measured in fractions of a millisecond, the rabbit's brain builds a surprisingly precise picture of where a sound is coming from, and often how far away it is. This is the part that changes how you should read a frozen rabbit. It is not simply registering something is out there. It is actively working out where, how far, and based on the sound signature, quite possibly what. The freeze typically lasts only as long as it takes to complete this calculation. Then one of two things happens. The rabbit relaxes, having determined the sound poses no threat, or it bolts, having determined that it does, often in a direction that, if you trace it, points away from the source it triangulated, not just away in general. Next time you see a rabbit freeze on your lawn, watch closely. Watch which way the ears are angled in those first still seconds, and watch which direction it runs, if it runs. That isn't panic. That's the result of a calculation completed in under a second, using information that arrived through sound alone. Put all of this together, and a single night in your garden looks completely different from a rabbit's perspective than it does from yours. In the early evening, as light fades, the rabbit's ears are working overtime simply because the soundscape is at its most crowded. Birds settling for the night, each producing distinct contact calls. The last of the day's human activity, cars returning, doors closing, the particular footstep patterns of people coming home. Every one of these is being cataloged, cross-referenced against the rabbit's existing sound library, and either filed as familiar or flagged as new. As the evening deepens, the soundscape thins, but it doesn't go quiet, not to a rabbit. This is when the higher frequency layer becomes more prominent. Small mammal activity in the hedges and borders increases. Insect sound shifts. And this is also, for many rabbits, when foraging activity increases, which means the ears now have a second job alongside threat detection, tracking the rabbit's own movements relative to known escape routes, using sound to maintain a kind of acoustic map of how far it is from cover, without needing to look up constantly. In the deeper part of the night, low-frequency sound becomes more significant. This is when larger animals move, and when their footfall, often inaudible to humans at distance, becomes one of the most important pieces of information a rabbit can have. A fox crossing a garden 2 properties away might never be seen, never be smelled yet, but its weight and gait on the ground can register on a rabbit's hearing well before anything else does. And throughout all of this, the crowded early evening, the thinning midnight, the low-frequency dominant deep night, the rabbit's ears never fully stop. There is no point in the night where the system switches off. The 2-channel, independently rotating, frequency-spanning hearing system never pauses while the rabbit is out in the open. All of this means something specific about your relationship with the rabbits in your garden, even if you've never thought of it as a relationship at all. Every rabbit that uses your space has built, through hearing alone, an extraordinarily detailed map of it, who moves through it, what they sound like, which sounds mean nothing, and which mean everything. None of this requires the rabbit to see you, smell you, or recognize you as an individual in any way you'd understand. It just requires your footsteps, heard enough times, to become familiar. This is why some rabbits seem to grow more relaxed around specific people in a household over time, while remaining wary of others, even visitors who've been around for weeks. It isn't necessarily about scent or sight at all. It's about sound, repeated, consistent, and gradually reclassified from unknown to known. The rabbit at the edge of your lawn at dusk isn't unaware of you. It very likely knows exactly what you sound like and has known for longer than you've known it was there. What looks, from your kitchen window, like a rabbit quietly nibbling grass in the dark is, acoustically, one of the most active processing systems in your entire garden, running continuously, comparing, filing, and reacting to a soundscape that's almost entirely invisible to you. There's something worth sitting with here. Every rabbit that uses your garden has built, through hearing alone, a map more detailed than most people ever build of their own street. And it did all of it without you ever being aware it was happening. Next time you're outside in the evening and you notice a rabbit go still, take a moment. Don't move toward it. Just watch the ears. Watch which way they turn. You're not just watching a rabbit watching the world. You're watching it listen to a soundscape you'll never fully hear, one that's been playing in your garden every single night, whether you've noticed it or not. Tell me in the comments, have you ever watched a rabbit's ears move like this, tracking something you couldn't hear or see at all? I read every single one. I'll see you in the next one.